Oops. Excuse me. So the first one is, there are three reasons that Valmiki Ramayana gives about why Lord Ram killed Vali the way he killed him, right? In fact, Valmiki Ramayana describes that Vali lay dying on the battlefield and Ram came before him. And he asked Ram, he said, "You are the personification of Dharma. How could you kill me? I had no battle with you. This battle was between me and Sugriva. I had no, disconnection or disagreement with you. Why did you kill me?" And then Ram gives these reasons. And you know what happens at the end of that? Vali actually accepts. He says, "You're absolutely right." He repents and starts crying. And he said, "You have freed me from this sin of egoism and arrogance that my entire life was filled with. And thanks to you, I'm going to go back to the spiritual world." Because anyone that is killed by the Lord actually goes back to the spiritual world. It's not an ordinary death for that person. So the first reason was Vali deserved to be killed because. Sorry?
Ramanasura also killed by God only, right?
Yeah.
He also went to the spiritual.
Well, so when the demons are killed, so Vali actually had piety. So Vali actually had a different destination than some of the demons that are described. So the demons, when they are killed by the Lord, they merge into his body. And the devotees or the pious, they actually go back to the spiritual world. So there's a slight, they still get a better destination, the demons too. But Vali was actually an aggressor, right? And it's described, he was an aggressor in two ways. One is, he had kidnapped Sugriva's wife and his brother's wife and made her his wife. He had added her to the harem of wives that he had, which is a very immoral thing to do. Brother's wife is like his sister. You can't, force, and he forced her into that. It wasn't like, so, he was a rapist, basically. So that was the first one. And who was the ruling king at that time in Ayodhya? Bharat. Because remember, Ram was in Manvas, right, in the forest. So Bharat, Ram thought of himself as a servant of King Bharat. And Vali had taken lands and kingdom that belonged to someone else, Sugriva, forcibly without asking permission from the king. And so this had to be corrected. In those days, the Kshatriyas, they ruled to establish dharma, because here's the thing, if even in your own family, if you tolerate one little immoral thing, it can be the start of very big things, right? Same at our workplace, if we lead a team, we tolerate someone who is doing some little things that are wrong, it starts going to bigger things. And then they end up polluting other people. So in those days, the Kshatriyas would rule to establish dharma. If people followed the rules, they were happy and free to do whatever they wanted. But if they did like this, they had to be punished. So that was the first example. Then the demigods, the devatas, right? Surya, Indra, Brahma, even Lord Shiva, they're all devatas. They are, reigning divisional vice presidents, if you like to call them, or divisional presidents, right? With Krishna being the CEO, right? So, they are not the supreme, but they are very powerful. They are much more powerful than we are, right? So we offer them we offer them respect, but we don't worship them because we worship Krishna, we worship the CEO directly. But the demigods had given a benediction to Vali that anyone he fought with face to face, he would get half their strength transferred to him. So if Ram had done that, half of Ram's strength would have transferred to Vali. Now you might say, if Ram is the Supreme Lord, why does he need to worry about it? He doesn't. But Ram is the Lord is so compassionate and he's so sensitive that he did not want to invalidate the benedictions that were given by the demigods, because those are his devotees. So he doesn't want to put them under like some kind of like, oh yeah, the demigods' benedictions will not work if the Lord interferes and makes them something different. So he kept their benedictions, and therefore he fought Vali from the back, not from the front. And then the third was that Vali behaved, Hari Bol, you want to listen to the Ram Katha also? Wonderful. And the third was Vali behaved like an animal. because Sugriva, when they had that disagreement, he had actually taken shelter of Vali and said, I made a mistake, please give me shelter. And Vali instead tried to kill him. And who does that? Animals do that. And then animals are allowed to be killed by the king. Right? So for these three reasons, it was correct for Ram to kill Vali. And Vali himself accepted that. And he said, yes, you're right. So then let's talk about controversy number 2. How are we doing for time? We okay?
Ram Navami is like next Sunday we are celebrating, so you can go all the way up to there. So, Saturday, Sunday.
I think when people might throw coconuts or something
No.
at me. Or they might try to kill me from behind. Inspired by the Vali pastime. No, I'm just kidding. Devotees kill with their love, not with any weapons. So the second controversial thing is Agni Pariksha. Yeah? Like after Sita, poor thing, for a year almost, she was in Lanka. And then she meets Ram. You know, Ram fights an entire battle. It's like a world war. Like it's described, Pandit Srivas Prabhu or someone else, Vedvyas Priya Prabhu, keep me honest. It's described 80 million monkeys fought with him or 100 million monkeys.
No, more than that.
Ridiculous number.
Yeah,
Like not like a little number. You know? So he fought a whole world war with this demon. He killed Ravana, he killed Kumbhakarna, he killed all the demoniac forces. And then Sita, you know, he tells Hanuman to ask her to come before him, shower, you know, take bath and come in nice, you know, full jewelry and costumes. And then when she comes, he doesn't even look at her. He looks at Lakshman and or Hanuman and he says, no, take her away, I don't have any use for her anymore. And Sita, it's like a dagger to her heart. Like, what's going on? Right? And she's so devoted to him. And he said, no, she's been in someone else's, you know, some other man's custody for a year. You know, I don't want her. And then she says to prove, yes, let me finish the story. So to prove myself, right, I will walk through fire and I will show that I'm actually pure. And she prays that if I even once thought of another man or took the name of another man, even once in my 1 year, let this fire consume me. And she enters the fire, and then Agni Dev comes out and returns Sita to Ram. And then Ram accepts her. So there are the Acharyas tell us, and Valmiki Ramayana tells us, why did this happen? Because in those days, it was the norm. Remember, we are trying to apply today's norms of Kali Yuga to Treta Yuga. But the standards of purity were very high at that time. It's not like, you know, today men and women, they hang out, they have affairs, you know, they do stuff. It's considered, yeah, you know, he just had 2 affairs, right? And it's considered okay, which is not okay, but, you know, in modern society, that's what's considered. But in those days, a woman would not even look at another man or chant someone else's name or think lustfully of another man, right? So this was actually meant to glorify the purity of Sita. How glorious is Sita? And this Agni Pariksha confirmed that. There's another reason for that, for this story. That in a prior life, there was a wonderful devotee called Vedavati who had prayed to be Lord Vishnu's wife. And Ravana tried to forcibly take her. And she burnt herself to death by her mystic power. And she told him that because you tried to put your filthy hands on me, a woman will be the cause of your destruction. I will be the cause of your destruction in a future life. And she came as Maya Sita. So when, you know, the whole golden deer episode happened and Ravan tried to, you know, took Sita away, right? The one that he took was this Vedavati who had appeared as not the real Sita but as Maya Sita in this life. And so what happened when she went into the fire is Agni Dev had kept the real Sita with his wife. His wife was taking care of Sita Devi. And so Maya Sita entered, Agni Dev's wife gave Sita to him, and he walked out with the real Sita, and she came back to Ram, right? So that was the other reason. And a king always has to think of the example he sets. You know, when you read Bhagavatam, you realize, you know, we may think, oh, a king has so much wealth and power and is worshipped so much. Every single time my wife and I, we read Bhagavatam, we pray, Krishna, this is so dangerous to have so much power and wealth. You know, please let us be a humble servant of you and your devotees. this kingdom and all, it's too much, right? It feels very attractive, and today's, everyone's trying to be the president or the prime minister, whatever. It's actually very dangerous. So a king has to think of the example that he sets. So that was the third reason why the Agni Pariksha happened, right? That he always has to be above everything else, right? And then I'll touch on one other controversial incident, which is perhaps the most controversial, that Sita was pregnant with Love and Kush, Ram's own children, right? After 14 years of Vanvas, forest life, they had come back and they had settled into the kingdom. They were so happy together. The Praja, the population was so happy with them because that's all they wanted, Ram and Sita as king and queen. And in those days, the king would always send spies or go himself to listen to what the population was saying. And there he heard a washerman talking angrily to his woman, to his wife, that just because you went overnight and I don't know where you were probably with another man, just like that Sita, she was with Ravana, right? And I don't want someone like that. Ram may have taken her back, I'm not going to take you back, right? And Ram heard this and he talked about it with his council. And you might say, well, what is this? This is a lousy rumor. It's not really true, and it wasn't obviously true, right? But there are many things, like you will see in your own life, if someone starts talking dirty things about you, you have a few options. You can ignore them, right? Perhaps they'll go away. Sometimes they do die down, right? Because most people are self-absorbed, they don't really care about you. So, we think, oh my God, everyone's talking about me. But after a few initial exciting things, people just quiet down and they go about their life. But we keep thinking, oh my God, someone's talking about me, right? But the other thing you can do is to try to counteract that rumor and say, no, I didn't do this. But you know what the side effect of that can be? It can actually put more fuel on the fire, and the fire can actually burn brighter. Why is he saying like this? Maybe there is something in that rumor, right? Or Ram could have just killed the washerman, right? Or put him in prison. But what could that have done? That would have put even more fire, or even more fuel on the fire. So what did he do? Now remember, when Ram was banished to the forest, Ram was banished beyond the bounds of the kingdom. Why? Because Kaikeyi did not want anyone in that kingdom to do anything to serve Ram. She wanted him really to struggle in the forest. Back when she was under the influence of mantra, right? She wanted him to really struggle. So he was banished beyond the bounds of the kingdom. But Sita was not banished. He told Lakshman, take her to Valmiki Muni's ashram. And there are thousands of sages there. And Valmiki will give shelter to Sita. And that ashram was within the kingdom of Ayodhya that was ruled by Ram. And which meant that if there was any danger that would have happened to the ashram or to Sita, Ram would have protected them, because that's the duty of a king. So actually, Sita was never not under Ram's protection. Even after she was put, Lakshman was tasked with the job of sending her to, or taking her to Valmiki's ashram, right? So that was the second thing. Then, there are backstories. Ramayana is full of backstories, so is Mahabharata. There are backstories that, ages before Treta Yuga, Bhrigu Muni, who was married to Khyati, he had gone on some, he had to take a bath, and he was in the river, and Khyati was alone in the ashram. And there was a demon that Vishnu was chasing. And that demon entered Khyati's ashram, or Bhrigu Muni's ashram, and said, Mother, please, give me shelter. I am being pursued by someone who wants to kill me. And Khyati was a very tender-hearted woman. Most women are very tender-hearted. So she was a very tender-hearted woman. And she said, son, don't worry, hide inside, I will protect you. So when Vishnu came, he said, did you see the demon, so-and-so? And she said, yes, but he's under my protection. I'm not going to give him up to you. And Vishnu said, but this demon has killed thousands of people in the universe, and he's creating havoc. He's raped women, and he's done so many things. And she said, that's okay. He's taken shelter of me, I'm not going to give him up. And Vishnu had to kill this demon for the betterment of the universe. But she was standing in between. So he actually killed Khyati. But remember, when the Lord kills someone, and they are devotees, they're pious people, they go back to the spiritual world. So she actually had a glorious departure, right? But when Bhrigu Muni came back, he was infuriated. He said, what happened to my wife? And Vishnu explained what happened. And he cursed Vishnu. He said, just as I am experiencing separation from my wife, you will experience separation from your wife in a future incarnation. And so this had to, Krishna always keeps the words of his devotees. Remember we talked about that? He actually, more than his own word, he keeps the word of his devotees. So to keep that word, this pastime had to happen, that Sita was taken to Valmiki Muni's ashram, right? And in fact, there is another side story to the backstory, okay? And that side story was that, and these are interesting, right? When you read all these are like, I just want to make sure I get this right. Oh, Madhvacharya, he talks about this side story, that there was a demon who was causing havoc in Lord Ram's time, not in Lanka, but within the kingdom, because there were still demoniac people left, right, elsewhere. And that demon had been given a boon that only when Lakshmi and Narayana separated will you be killed.
Wow.
Because he thought by asking for this boon, it's never going to happen. Lakshmi and Narayana never separate, right? Have you ever seen a picture of Vishnu just by himself? You always see him with Lakshmi, right? But Ram and Sita were separated. They are Lakshmi and Narayana, right? And so Ram was able to kill this demon after this separation happened. So that was the second set of things. And then the third set, it's very esoteric, it's very secret, okay? But I'll let you in on the secret, okay? And the secret is, love in separation is much higher than love in union. And in fact, before Ram and Sita came to the material world to display these pastimes, they had discussions that we have been together, we are always together, and it's so sweet, it's wonderful. But separation intensifies love. It is described, I was listening to Chaitanya Charan Prabhu, who's one of my Shiksha gurus, talk about this episode. And Chaitanya Charan Prabhu gave a beautiful analogy. Just like if there is a fire that's burning and wind comes, the fire multiplies, right? So separation is to genuine love what wind is to fire. So the separation actually makes the fire of love grow millionfold, right? And of course, and he gave the nice example, Chaitanya Charan Prabhu, that our love for Krishna is probably like a candle, like a little candle, like mine is probably like a flickering dead candle, but it's very little. So we should not take this as instruction, let me separate from the devotees. Let me separate from the Lord, because then my love is going to grow. No, our love will die if we separate from the devotees or from the Lord, right? This is meant for those whose love is so thick, it's like a forest fire, not like a candle fire, right? And Sita is Ram's own energy. So when this happened, their love just exploded. And remember one thing, Kshatriyas were allowed to take multiple wives. Dashrath Maharaj himself had 3 wives, right? Ram could easily have, after Sita left, taken another wife. In fact, for sacrifices, fire sacrifices, which was the standard of spiritual realization in those days, in Treta Yuga, right? You had to have a wife with you. You couldn't just sit by yourself. You know what Ram did? Did he marry again? No? Yeah, he never married again. And you know what the life duration was? And of course, Ram is eternal, he doesn't die. But externally, you know how many years he was on the planet? 11,000 years. Let me put that in context. At the age of 27, he went into Vanvas, into forest exile. 14 years makes it 41. He came back and he was installed as king at the age of 41. That time, in Treta Yuga, people lived till 10,000 years minimum, right? So, from the age of, and then, this incident happened of Sita being sent to Valmiki's ashram, happened around, when he was 42, 43, and Sita was a little younger. Ram ruled the planet for 11,000 years without Sita. And he was in deep separation. He would cry every day. But in public, he was strong, because he needed to be strong for the sake of his kingdom. In fact, this story has a wonderful, happy, sweet or bittersweet ending, right? After some time, the washermen and other people who were gossiping about the Lord and Sita Devi in this disgusting fashion, they had a change of heart. They realized, what have we done? My God, Sita is so pure. So they all went and begged her to come back. And they went to Ram and said, can we bring Sita back? And they said, well, she's your queen. She's my wife, but she's your queen. Because he always put his duty as a king towards his population higher than his own personal needs. And so they all went to get her back. She came back, but you know what she said? She said, and then Ram said, to prove her purity, she will do one more Agni Pariksha. Right? And she did. But Sita said, I've had enough of this, of these people, speaking ill one day, great one day. She said, I came from the earth. I'm going to go back to the spiritual world through the earth. The earth opened and she went back. And Ram ruled a kingdom in total separation from her for the next 11,000 years, or however many years, 11,000 minus whenever this happened, 50 or 100 years. So the moral of this story is that Ram wasn't doing this because he was selfish, he wanted to protect his reputation. The same Ram, people who accuse him that he was just concerned about his reputation, when he came as Krishna, he liberated those 16,000 queens who were imprisoned by Bhamasura, the demoniac king, who had taken those 16,000 damsels and he wanted to enjoy them himself. In those days, if you were taken forcibly by a king like that, you would never be accepted again. You would never have a husband. In fact, society would spit on you and take you, throw you out. What did Krishna do? They pleaded, please let us be your maid servants. Krishna said, why maid servants? I'll make you my queens. Right? And he made them queens in Dwarka. Right? And they enjoyed the highest standard of, intimate relationships with the Lord. So the same Lord who is not concerned about his reputation, and he does this as an act of compassion for these women. You think he's worried about reputation when he comes as Ram? He's not worried about reputation. He's doing this for bigger, broader reasons. And the final point that I want to leave you with is this thought and this fact. Some modern day, so-called pundits, they say, oh, Sita was a victim, poor Sita, and Ram did so much injustice to her. Sita was not a victim. She was a strong woman, right? There is a pastime when she was 5 years old and she was in the kingdom of Mithila playing, with her girlfriends. They played ball, and there are a couple of different versions of this story. But they were playing ball, and the ball bounced and went into the room where Lord Shiva's bow was kept, right? And that bow was so strong, it is described, that it took 100,000 men to move it from one place to the other. And Janak just happened to be passing by, her father. And remember, this is a 5-year-old girl, younger than you. Yeah? How old are you?
I'm
12, right? So much younger than you. You remember when you were 5, you were so little, right? So little 5-year-old girl, Sita, she goes inside and Janak is watching from a distance. He doesn't want to intrude. And Sita, she's looking for the ball and she discovers it's under the bow. With one hand, her left hand, she picks up the bow, takes out the ball and puts it down and goes away playing happily with her girlfriends. This is Sita. Sita, remember, Sita is the Shakti, Ram is the Shaktiman, right? And in our tradition, in Gaudiya Vaishnavism, we take shelter of the Shakti, that is Radharani or Sita Devi, even more than we take shelter of the Supreme Lord. Why? Because the Shakti, in this case Sita Devi or Radharani, they capture the Supreme Lord with their love. Not with their prowess or not by being, like throwing tantrums, but through the sheer power of their love, they conquer the Supreme Lord. So our understanding, Gaudiya understanding is, by approaching Sita Devi, by approaching Radharani and praying to them to say, please introduce me to your beloved Lord. They say a good word about us, the Lord immediately accepts the devotee. Right? So Sita is not some ordinary woman, that was like victimized or something. She could have destroyed Ravana with one glance, but she chose not to because she wanted her husband to be glorified for doing that. So she was not a victim. So there are many strands, to this, like a multi-layer cake. There are many strands to this story of why Ram sent Sita away. And I hope you got, some good juice out of this, and that if your family or friends ever challenge you on this, you can push back and you can tell them what the real facts are, told to us by our acharyas. Okay? Jai Shri Shri Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki Jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.
Prabhu, you would like to take some questions from?
Okay, sure. I thought it was late, so I...
No. Any questions or comments from anyone?
corrections?
Oh, I'd like to add one more thing
Sure.
regarding the Wali thing. That
Please.
yeah.
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 Oh, you have it. I was not following. I was going back and forth. So I want to add one more thing that Wali is a monkey. By nature his body is monkey. So Ram has a difference in that too. That I have to, as a Kshatriya, for an animal like you, I have to, hide behind the shoe.
Correct. Correct.
And then Wali comes back and say some other thing again. Then Ram counteracts Wali's question, but you're not a monkey now. You've learned all the Vedas and things like that. So I have the right to kill you again. So
Yeah, no, very good point. Thank you.
and also, I don't know if you mentioned this, but there was a time when Rama and Sita were in the forest. Sita had a desire to raise the kids in a forest environment like that. So she meant,
Thank you.
so she kind of converses with Ram and expresses her desire. So this is the environment with which I want to live and raise my kids. So Ram fulfills that desire.
For that, yeah. Thank you. I did not mention that point. That's a wonderful point. Everyone heard it? Yeah. That she had expressed a desire that she wanted to, when she was in Chitrakoot, in Vanvas, that I would love to raise kids when we are back in a forest environment. So that was another layer of that multi-layered cake, of why Ram sent Sita away. And remember, Ram suffered as much as Sita suffered, because it's not like he was heartless. And, he was, yes, in one sense, the love in separation actually makes them more united in the heart, but there is physical separation. So there is agony also, but there is ecstasy. It's, to people like me, it's, and maybe some of you might find it hard to understand the love in separation, but we hear from our acharyas that it's actually the highest form of love.
So one more thing, that Ravan have no capacity to kidnap Sita or abduct Sita, because it's Sita's desire to go get kidnapped,
Right.
so that Ram can come and kill Ravan to relieve all the other women who are caught captives in Ravan's empire.
Right.
So Sita herself is this plan of Lord, and Sita to go to Lanka and
Correct. The whole story of Ramayana, it's so wonderful, and that's why I would urge you, if you're interested, please get these copies of Valmiki Ramayana that are coming out from Srila Jayapataka Swami's disciple, one by one, and read them, because that's the whole explanation. There are many wonderful renditions of Ramayana, like in our ISKCON movement, Krishna Dharma Prabhu, your Guru Maharaj Bhakti Swami, then other people have also written and spoken. But if you read the 24,000 verses which are coming out, that'll be like, the cherry on the cake. So please come to me, I'll give you the telephone number, you can contact this devotee, and you can send me these copies.
Or they can contact Pandit Srivas Das, and
Okay.
then I will.
Wonderful.
That'll be easier, then we can just
Yeah.
streamline it like that.
Perfect, thank you. Any other questions or comments?
I was going to ask that question, but you already answered that. Like, which one we can read, like, which Ramayana, because there are a lot of version of Ramayana out in the available in the market. So, oh, thank you.
Of course.
How Rama left his body, Prabhuji? Like Krishna, we have story, right? Arrow, someone like that, or just how?
My understanding, and someone correct me if I'm wrong, is he simply left for Ayodhya. And he went actually with his entire praja. His whole population went back with him.
Oh.
Yeah, in the same bodies. Yeah.
Yeah, they went to the river.
Yeah. or to the Sarayu River.
Yeah.
And then they
took
just-
all the residents.
From there, yeah. And from
So
there
we
they
went
went
to the
to,
spiritual world.
yeah.
There was no death.
Then
It wasn't death.
Treta Yuga ended after that.
Treta Yuga, no, it continued because, yeah.
Okay.
And then Dwapar started.
Actually, in the spiritual world, there is a planet, Ayodhya down.
Yeah.
Correct.
below.
Correct.
So it's if the everlasting passions are going on.
Yeah, because the Vaikunthas are unlimited. You know, the spiritual world, we are told it's 3/4 of the creation and the material world is 1/4. And the Vaikuntha planets are many. So, you know, where Lord Narayan lives, it's one planet, right, or one series of planets. But then Ayodhya is a planet in the spiritual world where those who worship Ram, they go to Ayodhya. Everyone went except Hanuman. You know why? And Hanuman was devastated. He said, "Oh my God, how can I live without you?" And Ram gave him the benediction that every place where there is Ram Katha or Ram Naam going on, you will be present. So, Hanuman ji ki
Jai.
Because even someone as insignificant as me, because I'm speaking about Lord Ram and I'm speaking in parampara, you know, from Srila Prabhupada, my guru, and you know, gurus past, who knows, maybe Hanuman is here listening to Ram.
Actually, we're supposed to put a Vyasasana for Hanuman to sit like the very traditional Ramayana Kathas.
That's what they do.
Put a Vyasasana for Hanuman.
Yeah.
Just for Hanuman to come and sit and listen.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we do not do that, but maybe when
Maybe
you have Ramayana
this
program
empty
next.
seat.
Yeah.
Maybe this empty seat.
Might be fear of it.
Any other questions or comments? Yes, Prabhu.
Yeah, so I was reading about the beginning part, how Manthara convinced Kalkei. So that was very, I mean, that power of like how the thoughts are manipulated of Kalkei, that's very amazing. And how we can be protected from that. Like she tells when she tells first time that you are sitting here, but tomorrow Ram is going to be coronated as king. And she's initially like she's happy, she gives some gift to her, like you gave such a nice news. And then she tells us that, I mean, you are, but why this thing is happening when Bharat is not here? Do you not?
Conspiracy theory.
Conspiracy.
Yes, that's how conspiracy theories start. They are the original conspirators, or Mantarayas.
then she says, yeah. Bharat will become eventually after Lord Ram, he will become king, no problem. Then she says that, oh no, after Lord Ram, his son will become king. Why Bharat will come? Then how gradually she convinces, that is very, I mean, the misinformation how it can change that thoughts of person, that is very powerful.
Actually, in this context, one of my earliest mentors in corporate life, he was a very senior guy in Asia. He told me, he said, the first step you take that is wrong might be just 6 inches, you know, in distance, right? But it's the start of a slippery slope. So he said, never take that first step. And why I brought this up? Because how Mantra started poisoning Kaikeyi's mind, you know, it started gradually. And in fact, initially Kaikeyi was thrilled, like, yes, Ram is going to be king. And then she started working on, you foolish woman, what are you celebrating for, right? And you're going to become a maidservant, and Kaushalya is going to become the real queen. And so far, you, Kaikeyi, have been the favorite queen of Dasharath. And now Kaushalya is going to become, and it didn't happen right away, but it happened over time. And then Kaikeyi got completely poisoned to the point she was heartless. When Dasharath was like rolling on the ground, crying like, you foolish woman, you're going to kill me. She's like, I don't care. Just make my son the king. Send Ram to the forest. And why 14 years? Because it was considered that after 14 years, the throne would be deemed to have been vacant. So Bharat would be the rightful king even after 14 years. So that's why that 14 years wasn't some magic formula that she came up with. This was the accepted principle. So she wanted that throne vacant, like Ram not to sit on it for 14 years. And then Bharat would have ruled, and then that's, in those days, the law was that meant that Bharat could be king now till he dies. So it's very powerful, very informative. Actually, I heard Gaudiya Acharya not in Srila Prabhupada's, and I didn't necessarily hear from him. I read something, and I don't know the prominence of this or the the shastras, but this is a very prominent acharya, so I believe that this is valid. They said that actually before coming to this planet, Kaikeyi and Ram in Ayodhya, the eternal Ayodhya upstairs in the spiritual world, they had a conversation, and he told her that I want you to play this role of sending me to the forest and breaking people's hearts. And she said, what are you asking me to do? And he told her, such things can be only asked for people who are the closest to us. Like you cannot ask someone who's not close to me, I cannot ask them to do this, but what a difficult role for Kaikeyi to play, isn't it? And Yogamaya, of course, ensures that when it actually happened, this was all genuine, there was no acting there, So it's very powerful. Please, I'm so happy that you've been listening so intently and so many nice questions and comments came. Ramayana is like my favorite scripture to talk about and hear. So, spend the next 2 or 3 days leading up to Ram Navami, trying to listen to, different Ram Katha stories. If you type in, and once you type in one name, many ISKCON devotees' names will come in. You can type in some Swami's names and just say Ramayan or Chaitanya Charan on Ramayan or Gauranga Prabhu on Ramayan, right? And then all kinds of speakers will come in. Please listen, your life will be like, you'll be thrilled. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.
Let's thank His Grace, Yugal Kishore, sorry Prabhu. Yashuda Dulal Prabhu, by chanting Hari Bol 3 times. Hari Bol, Hari Bol.